Hi everyone, thank you for the patience that you took to wait. Sometimes technical issues happen and the machines win eventually, but we are here, we are alive, so thank you so much for joining us. Today we're gonna have Julie and Beatriz with me, so we can do an unboxing design system. For those who don't know the concept, it's basically, as the name probably came to mind, so it's basically unboxing the design system. And so we're going to basically analyze the homepage, some documentation pages, and then we try to goof around and try some components on the Figma file, so we can see if we can recreate the components that they make available on the Figma community. And that's basically it. It's pretty much like a coffee chat, in case you are wondering, with some friend of yours, like, do you already check Salesforce Design System? What do you think about this and that? So that's basically the flow so far. So I'm Raquel. I'm a Friends of Figma advocate, leader. I think now we are leaders. Sorry, they changed recently the title. And I'm also a lead UX designer at Nokia, managing the Nokia design system. And then with me, I'm gonna ask now that Julia and Beatriz gonna present themselves. So maybe Beatriz, go for it.
I'm Beatriz. I'm a collaborator at Friends of Figma Portugal, and I'm also a senior systems designer at Bumble. We have Bumble and Badoo. So if you want to try out those apps, you can surely do.
Cool. And now Julia.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, I'm Julia. I am a UX designer at Booking.com. Also an enthusiast as design system. I've been working with design system before, and now leading product libraries. So yeah, excited for this meeting, talking about design systems.
Great. We often publish in previous design unboxings this website, designsystems.com. It has a lot of articles that are made from Figma, dedicated to design systems, and then they have the design system repo, where you can see a lot of design systems that are available in Figma. So in case you want to check that out, in case you are not aware of this, we basically go here and try to see where it would be our next unboxing, basically, so we know that are available on Figma. And you can also check it, the latest blog on Figma, which is Shortcut, in case you want to know more specific stuff regarding Figma. So just to give you a heads up on these type of assets that Figma has. And so let's dive in. So Salesforce calls his public design system, at least this is the design system that we are aware of, they call it Lightning Design System. This is like the current web page, which it's basically, for what we understand, dedicated to the current design, and they are not preparing a new design. So I think it's a very interesting design system for those who are suffering, for those at home that are doing design systems or wanted to understand how we can change one big version to another, because it's basically, for what we understand so far, that they are doing like a makeover of the UI and basically try to understand how they do it in the strategy. And I think it's really interesting the way that they put it. So when you go on the homepage, they just put like already like a snack bar, like just start to explore the new one, and then you go there. And I found this really interesting, that even though that we don't have access to the content, like if I check the buttons, it will go to a specific Salesforce page, private one. But I found it interesting that they put it more public and more, and they share the availability of the things they are designing and the roadmap. So I found it really interesting because we often see that the public design systems don't have this type of communications of sharing how will be the next steps and the next release and stuff. So for what we've been concluding so far, I think they are very open and they're a very hybrid, like public versus internal content. So if we go here and check the releases notes, you can see that it's a very explicit notes, like they put everything, like which icon they added. So for what, at least for what I understand, I think they actually use this also internally. And I found it really cool, the transparency to put this out in the world, because, what's the good for us to know? But I think it shows confidence and the way that they are working, and they try, I think, to do 2-in-1, because I'm not sure if you also noticed that, Julian, Beatriz, that sometimes the public design systems are not actually the whole design system of the brands, or they have multiple design systems inside of the companies, because it's really hard sometimes if big companies have just one design system. So I think here they are trying to do the best of the both worlds, for what I've been concluding so far. Yeah, it's interesting, that narrative. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes also like design systems, or at least the ones that are public, are more like for marketing stuff.
Yeah.
They don't show like everything, like the in-betweens of the design system, like how something is done or not. So it is nice to see this kind of stuff where like they put everything, like what's next, what's the next big reveal that we're gonna have. I don't know if having the roadmap is the best thing to do, just because sometimes roadmaps are not really followed. We might expect something to be released like during the summer, and that ends up being like during the winter or like next year. So it's not really like feasible sometimes, but I guess they have the amount of money to actually know, like the amount of people and money to know that this for sure will be released during that time. I guess that's why they also put it there. I think it's great that they like, you still have the availability of seeing like the old design system, while still knowing that this is going to be rebranded and a lot of stuff are going to be new. So it's actually exciting, like the way that they show this progress on their own design system.
And I think it's nice, like what you mentioned about it being open. I think it has to do also with the fact that they have a open source part with the web components and the UI kit, right, for web development. And I'm a huge fan of open source stuff, anything that has like open contribution with community. So I think it's also nice that they have this clear communication, right?
And I think along with that, they also have a blog where they share a lot on their design culture. I think they even have a LinkedIn page just dedicated to design inside of Salesforce. So I think it's really interesting that share with the community, even though it's just a nice to have, because they don't need to show it to the world. But I found it was interesting as a sign of design maturity to the world. Another thing that I found it really interesting was this one. It's not dedicated like to design systems, but I thought it was a very cool. So just a side note, that they have like they, at least for what I understood, like a validator, like a designed leads for code, where people can validate if the implementation is going well. So I think this is really great, because you're doing a new design, right? And so to avoid again another design death of the things that you are changing on the product, I found this really useful for basically to validate on the code. I'm not sure how it works. Eventually they will explain this a little bit better, but I found it really cool. Just not just thinking about design, but also on the code side, like a validation. So I found it was really cool. Yeah.
This is where you see that like what companies have a lot of money to invest in this kind of like plugins or whatever to make everyone's life easier, which that's what a design system is for, is basically make everyone's life easier, right? Like going to this depth of how to help others, this is great. I would have that for sure.
Cool. So they're getting started is not, that's appealing as we had on the homepage. So when we go deeper and deeper on the documentation, at least I felt that they start to get more geeky and more technical, which is part of it, at least from their culture. But the getting started is very straightforward, just 2 steps: explore and then review the component sections, and that's it. So there's not like too much here to understand. And the other thing that I found cool, mostly I think dedicated to their realities, that they have this section for platforms. So depending on the platform that you are working on, they have like specific like steps that you need to do. And so for instance, the Lightning is probably like a big software or product or part of the company that it's called Lightning. And so it's really interesting that they have it here. And you also have the other one, so Visual Force, which I assume that it's another part of it, and this one, and then more specific to Android or iOS. So I find this really interesting. And this is just an example that even though that we don't understand a clue about this because it's very internal language, I find it interesting, this hybrid that they do, as I was saying at the beginning, like this is a public design system, but we can still see this and we can have a very clear information about the products and which things are needed to be used in which platform. So I think it's really interesting, that transparency, really straightforward, and it was really interesting.
I still think, sorry, Raquel, I still think like an onboarding to actually understand what each platform does and like what are the different guidances of the different components. Although I do believe that this design system, this being public, it's the way that they have to like do like some sort of onboarding, but they might have something else just to show like what are the things that you can do on this platform with the design system and so on. I mean, it does have a lot of information, but I still feel like there's something else that they should add here. At least from my understanding of the platform, of course.
Yeah. We have a comment from Dixon that says to us that my understanding is that Lightning System is used by enterprises that use their custom builder tools, which reminds me that regarding that builder, I'm not sure if it's intention to that reference, but we actually have here on the design guidelines, which we would go next, they have here a section called builder. And at first we didn't understand, but now as you know, getting into it and people that already use this internally, we realize that the builder is basically where companies like developers and admins can do a flow using nodes and links and such. And then after that flow, he will convert into like a screen to you, a little bit like OutSystems drag and drop kind of thing. So it was really interesting, this part. So you basically configure it, you build the logic and the content and the data on it, and then you build something like this. And that's why then they explain, like, you have the canvas, and then eventually you want to create, so you add a component. So it's a very manual, like non-code friendly. And then you have the connectors, and then they explain a bit which connectors they have and why, and eventually how they work. And then you have the drag and drop experience, like how you can do the drag and drop stuff. And then eventually this will create slowly the mirror of that flow. So I find it interesting, this one. So they're explaining how they build a builder in a way, for what I understood.
I think it's like the best thing that can happen for a design system, where like you just simply don't use anything, don't do anything, and just like by creating nodes, it creates the overall experience or like the feature that you want to release for your app. So I guess sadly this is great, and I think this really emphasizes like the amount of money that they have to deliver all of these things, which is great. Amazing. And that would make our life so much easier, honestly, for everyone, if we had one of those for our jobs, which is integrated with design systems, honestly.
Yeah, and I also think what is nice in the builder is that it's different from the web components or just the UI components. You don't have just a button, you have a button that is going to call a function. So actually, when you select, if you see in the overview, it says like you can select exactly the process and the data that you want to pull. So it's connected already with function, right? So you're gonna select exactly like if you want, I don't know, to pull accounts or company details or payments, and so it's beyond just the UI as a component where you can define what this is gonna do. But you also have functions attached to it. So it's very straightforward, and you can actually build an entire flow and pull out this data and the actions, like those actions are already there, ready.
So think on,
and even like being a white label kind of design system. So when you're actually seeing these examples that they have, like in my mind, it just comes up like a lot of platforms that I've used, but I don't realize it's Salesforce, but I'm sure it is. But it's just labeling, And
Yeah,
you have
that's really nice. Yeah.
you have like this opportunity of configuring everything that you don't realize that you're using someone else's platform.
Yeah.
So this is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Another topic that I found that they have really interest, and it's a big reference for me because I think they have like a very good job, is their color system. So they basically have a numerical color system. What does this mean? Basically, each color would have the same luminance and contrast on each level. And this is really huge and really easy when you try to combine colors that, for instance, a text with a background. And you can do like magical numbers, like a ratio. Like, okay, you can use 100 with 15 as a background, 100 as a text and 50 as a background, because you can guarantee that at least that this color is AA or AAA compliant. So here they have a more example. So regarding of the color, you can see like you can start to match things, and if you change this to yellow, you would use like a yellow 50 or yellow 40, the contrast will be the same. So as they call it here, the magic numbers. Yeah. So it's really useful, and the idea came from the US web design system, and I totally recommend for you to read it. It's super interesting. And this was really interesting for me because in case you are redoing your accessibility, your color palette, just make sure like not create and generate by one X value, because sometimes the yellow on 30 won't have at all the same color contrast as a purple in the 30, that scale cliche like 100 to 900. So if you guarantee that they have the same color contrast and luminance, it's so much great to put things and create stuff. It's really more easy, basically. So if I put here like I can copy even. If I put here like a dark non-color and put it without color, you will see that all of them will more or less match to the same color, like regardless of the contrast. They have another one that's slightly better, like this one. I think it will match a little bit better. And for those who don't match 100%, they are in the ratio that they are inside of the same contrast ratio, basically. So even though they're slightly different, they will have the same level, the same value regarding the contrast. Like this color will have contrast with this one with 3, basically. So it's really useful. I'm not explaining 100% as I would like to, but basically they have a more correspondent color, and so it's really useful when you're doing components. For instance, yellow is really challenging sometimes, but if you do like a yellow that, regardless of the other colors like blue, purple, and such, would have the same luminance and contrast, it's not an issue if you put it as a background or not. It might not be the sexiest yellow, sure, but at least you can count it and use it, whatever. So it was really interesting, actually. I totally recommend for people to reading because it's really cool for me. Yeah. I'm not sure if you also read or know about it, Beatriz and Julia, about this accessible, like numerical color system, but it was really cool for me when I found out.
Yeah, I haven't seen before, but actually this is a really nice thing because I'm working on something similar to try to predict different colors ratio at booking.com as well, because we have also a white labeling system, and then partners can bring their own brand colors. So then how can we predict this color is going to be compliant, especially now? So the ratio is an amazing idea to control it. So it doesn't matter which color you're gonna have. You're gonna have of course, that group of shades that you can use, right? Then you can kind of predict the ratio. That's
just to share how,
like if it's AA or AAA as well, right?
Yeah. Just a little off topic, but just to share like how I did this voodoo. You basically have this tool called Leonardo from Adobe, and he basically helps you to create the theme and the color. Like you put here the value, and he will create that. And if you add here another color, I don't know why he called diarrhea. This was really random. Sorry, I didn't control this. Okay, but if I put here like another one, you see, he will do the math for me basically and do the ratio that I needed regarding the contrast if the background is white. So there's a lot of that you can play around with this one. So yeah, just a heads up and how eventually we do this, because by hands is really difficult to do it. But yeah, it was really cool.
That one, like if you see the design system of Adobe, like Spectrum Design Systems, they used it as well, just like Lightroom does. For example, we at Bumble, we have certain problems with the yellow because we're yellow, like our brand.
You're the yellow. Okay,
our brand guidelines are yellow, and we had a rebranding like a year ago, where we did integrated a lot of brand colors, which they don't follow like a specific palette. They don't go from like lightest to darkest. They're just like random yellows. So we've tried to integrated those into the design system, not in a palette way where I said like you have darker or lighter shadows, but we just have different colors. Like some of them are more yellowish, some of them are like more brownish, and other ones are a little bit more orange. So we did try to integrate all of those ones into the design systems, so that way also like a lot of marketing assets could be used. So we're trying to integrate the design system in that way. As of now, it works. It's that like we don't have this diarrhea colors.
It was really random. It was really random.
We don't have those ones because we've integrated the guidelines color. So we're trying to go a little bit on the other side. Of course, like we still have our neutrals, which go from lightest to darkest. But in terms of like the brand color or like the yellows, we try not to follow those same metrics that everyone uses, just because
it's yellow, right? So it's way more challenge. So you have to adjust to your brand, which is also a good advice. Like this might work, but you have to also adjust to your reality and see if it makes sense. And this one was also like, I think it's a good page that they basically talk about the color contrast ratio. So they, even though that the stroke is not mandatory on buttons and such, they eventually use a lot of stroke to put as a limit of the stuff, and it's interesting that they put it here. So I found it interesting. And then the other thing that I found really interesting on this design system, probably because they have a lot of experience on it, is the conversation design. So for conversation design, for those who don't know, it's basically the term that when you are more dedicated to the UX inside of bots and chats and stuff. So in case you're doing a bot or anything like that, because AI, chatbots, probably you are impacted with that or not. They have a lot of things here, like a lot of UX writing, like really complete and really like a lot of things to read about it. So I found it really interesting, because sometimes on UX writing, on design systems, we focus like the priority is like the more visual stuff, but I think the UX writing, it's something that we often need to give attention. And so I found this really interesting in case you need it for bots and stuff, or even just UX writing it in general. I found it really interesting.
Because as they are providers of like UI components, but also functions, right? Like the whole system for other companies, they are also offering agent, right? Like, so the chatbot. So I remember we are implementing something similar inside of our Salesforce. And that is like, it can be white labeled, right? Have your brand and talk with your internal employees. So the conversational design here is very important. That is already built in. And to build the solution is already there, and also already have the guidelines of how to design the how you call the tone of the conversation, how you configure, and things like that.
Another one that I found also really interesting, probably because they are like a very international one, and I often don't see this one, so that's why I'm highlighting, is talk about localization. For those who don't know, is basically to consider that translating directly is not sufficient enough sometimes. If you're designing something for an European, it won't be the same experience for an Asian, for instance. So you need to adapt to the culture, and so it's a bigger step than translation. So I found it really interesting that they also have here like the awareness of the colors, because reds for us in Europe is like warning and such, but then on Asia it's actually luck and happiness. So maybe red there is not actually like a big error as we have here, like a very sad thing. And I found that this really interesting because they probably serve for multiple parts of the world. So this localization stuff is also really interesting in case you are thinking like globally. So you can basically adequate for the reality that you are designing to. So it's really interesting because we only consider, our comfortable zone. So I think it was really interesting.
Yeah. I think I saw something also about responsiveness because I see in this localization, for example, on the example in, I think, Mandarin, probably, the button will grow, right? And this happens a lot when you change.
Yeah.
And it might be really cool to see how they work.
Portuguese.
How they work with responsiveness of the components and the modules itself, because everything is very modular, right?
Oh, they even put like the expansion factor.
Expansion factor.
Yeah,
we work,
of course, German.
Normally when we work with localization, we have like the M count or something like that. So there's like a limit also for the writers. It's nice to have the expansion factor.
Yeah. They also have this like inside system called kinetic system, which at first I was like, okay, naming another system inside. I'm team like you should do less is more, like trying to simplify. But for what I understood, and there's stuff. So who am I to judge? But the kinetic seems like a motion design system inside of Salesforce. So they have a lot of things regarding motion. So in case you need motion design, they have a lot of things here. So it seems like a pretty good documentation for you just to explore. They have a lot of things here to consider, and how do you do it, and how eventually this will go on the code and stuff. So I found it really interesting, very much complete, and how things eventually go into transition there, here and there. And so this is a very complete motion design as well, in case you are wondering, for desktops. I think material design has also a lot, but since it's a more mobile stuff, maybe this could be a good reference for people that are making stuff for desktop. Yeah.
Also, I think this is like very important because it's what gives like your design system or like your platform that look and feel, or that experience that you want to achieve with it. Like if you just see a blank page or page with like all of your components and stuff being built, but then doesn't have any motion behind, it just stays static. It doesn't really gives you that feeling of you're using this platform that belongs to Salesforce or whatever other company. So I do find this motion design sometimes very important. Also, sometimes even more important than the components themselves. Of course, you use the components for build all of this stuff, but the motion can interact a lot with users and more than anything else, honestly. That's at least what I believe in. That's why I'd love to see all of those micro interactions within the design system.
Right. On the checkbox and radio button, you feel that a lot, right? So yeah. And then we have like the component blueprints, which is a very interesting overview of the components, and it's really different from the usual, because we usually have like the thumbnail all pretty, and you have like a grid of cards for each type of components, but here they're like super straight. Like they have like a table, and they tell you which one are responsive, which one you can adapt, which one they have the styling hooks, so probably the things that we are seeing here on the styling hooks, lightning stuff. So you can know which one you can do and which one has a prototype. So it's really interesting. And once you go and dig in, you go and basically it's really like as simple as possible. And we were talking, briefly when we were studying this stuff. We suspect that this is such a white label, and probably that's why we don't have so many documentation to use it. So that's what we suspect, because if you see here, we don't have like a specific way to use this specific accordion, or don't do this and don't do that, like the usual stuff. We even have like a change log of the component, which is not that frequent, and all of the type of things regarding the CSS classes and the styling hooks overview. So I think this is really prepared for people to just use it as an open source and a white label, and then probably in their reality they do the do's and don'ts, and they personalize the accordion as they wish, and that's probably what we suspect, right? I think Bia or Julia, if you want to complete.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this beforehand. And first we were like, why don't we see this do's and don'ts? Why is it not prepared for designers to actually know what they need to do? But then we realized that by being a white label, you need to give, or like to be a platform that you can do whatever you want, you need to give that flexibility to users. So I guess that's why they put it here, like a lot of information just for developers, like to know how to develop this component. But then when it's up to the behaviors and like the guidelines, they're kind of more broader, and like you can do kind of what you want, just use our component with our tokens, but use it correctly. Also, like they have like a lot of builders and a lot of platforms that are already done. You just need to change like the colors throughout with like your branding and stuff. So is it really that important to have the guidelines here when no single designer or like only Salesforce designers are going to use it? Well, it depends, right? It depends if it's needed or not.
For instance, you're on the tone, like you probably want to use this one, you know, like it's very like, in case you want it, you know, there's a suggestion. So it's really interesting how they put it.
I think they try to be very like guide just to the core, because in my experience, a lot of what we build for a company specifically is very custom. And I remember I have a lot of issues using the components because they are made to be more basic, like feedback, button, progress, but then you have to customize a lot of things. Of course, this created a lot of maintenance, but I think that's why like they don't go too much deeper, because it's almost made to be customized.
Also, don't you think that breaks a little bit like the overall thing about design systems, where like everything should be A, B, and C, and not have like different things all around the internet? So as we said, like if anyone can do whatever they want based on this code, pretty much you can put everything anywhere. Like, of course, maybe the are going to be the same, like blah blah blah, who cares about colors right now, but like the overall experience, how to use a component, it can be different throughout platforms. So I don't know if I'm very keen about like having everything you just do whatever you want, like happy flowers world. But I mean, I guess
I'm loving the options.
I get a little bit distracted while I was listening to you, like hello
with that.
But I totally understand you, Bia, like where's the limit of you should use like this and that, right? Like where we define a line, because I think they just identify themselves as a very white label. So when you're using like a framework, they actually just also provide you like the very minimum of the options. So I think they focus more on the variants, like what you can do in multiple ways, and then on those variants, like the disabled will look like this, so you probably can overwrite, but it's already like defined how disabled looks, you know? So maybe some things are there, but they're not verbal on the documentation, you know? Like this list will work like this, you know, on the horizontal, and you cannot change that because that's the way that a component is used, you know? So maybe there are things that they just assumed that you get it, and it's like that, you know, like you're not going to question how to do like this and not that. But it's interesting, your question. I totally get you.
When you're building anything white label, you also have like incentive to do things very agnostic. You get a lot of limitations, like you lose a lot of the kind of personalization this could have, for the sake of like to be agnostic.
Maybe like, for example, right now, like their design system doesn't include any guidance at all, but maybe in the past they did, just because like the companies that use their design system, they needed that to just like learn how to use these components. But right now maybe they have like a lot of clients that have been with them for like the last 10 years or whatever, and they do know how to use them. So maybe that's why they also don't need this kind of documentation. I don't know. Maybe it's because of that.
Yeah, it could be a good guess, I think. This utilities actually seems like UI patterns, which in my opinion maybe should be like here on the design guidelines. It seems weird that it's on the bottom, but maybe it's because it's an open source. This is not like a mandatory stuff for people to use. So they're probably just, suggesting that you use like 3 columns or 4. Like, as you can see, this is also very like open source kind of thing, like providing you a grid and how many types of things that you can use. But either way, I think this would make more sense on the top. But they have a lot on this one. So the paddings, and then they give you like how many type of paddings do they have, and you go and go for it. And of course, we have like a very extensive design token page. So in case you want to explore with your time, go for it. And you can even search for it here. So this search is actually useful when you're doing like, we have a lot of design tokens here to explore. So I think this one,
I
is
like that they
straightforward.
have the column for themable, and
Yeah.
they have some colors they are not.
Yeah. This one, right? Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, like these classifications. Yeah, it's really useful. And then you can filter but as you wish, as usual. And then they have like quite icons. Oh, I forgot this one regarding icons, but I think it's really useful. They also have here some guidelines on designing icons, and I thought it was really nice as a reference in case you wanna also do that on your design system. Iconography. Yeah, my bad, sorry. So they give a lot of information on how you build the grid and how you build an icon. So it's really useful for people that are also wants a reference and how to make them, because sometimes it could be tricky in case you don't have much icon experience on making those things. So I thought it was really interesting on how to design the icons. So here we have a lot of documentation, right? Because in order to create an icon, you kind of need to give them, we have do's and don'ts as well. So this, they probably think, okay, we need to teach people how to use proper icons. So here has a full documentation, maybe to compensate the other one that they don't have. Yeah, just joking. Okay, I think now we can go to the playground. Just wanna read a comment for Margarida Nobre in case then it's too late. A bit off topic, but I love how brand design guidelines are now increasing being integrated with or without thoughtful alignment. Everything is becoming more connected now, adding marketing assets and UI systems, making a more seamless and cohesive approach. I totally agreed. I'm not sure if there were two people or the same, but in case so, I agreed in the same way. And I think that's really interesting, and that's why I believe that each design system can have more than just components and just UI, right? It could be a lot of things, more than just that. Also regarding marketing and other stuff. So I think it's really useful, and it's really also included here how they have that, right? So yeah, I think it was a good approach for the people that comment. So thank you. Yeah, so as usual, we replicate the Figma community file. So in case you want to see it, you go on the Salesforce profile, and you can see that the oldest one will have this look and feel with their mascots, and now the newest stuff will have this bluest background. And then we basically replicate this one because we would like to just explore and how we could recreate this current UI to the new UI. So try to understand like how we would go and find a navigation, accordions, tabs, and stuff like that. Yeah, so basically I just added here the page, right? So, but overall things are more or less the same. They have here like a welcome page, and they basically give you like how to use this stuff. So it's good, it's nice to have. And then they give here like a best practices, which I think is really cool, like how to, avoid detaching, add the library to your file. Even though that this seems like super obvious, it's not. If you work especially on an international company that some people still don't have a clue if they use Figma or not. So this is very nice to have, like add instance and then, teach basically how to use the main stuff for Figma and how to use the property panels. Quite long, will be interesting to see it later. And I found it interesting, basically, using also here information of the slots. So I think it was nice just to teach, even though they're not like mandatory to do it. And also how they have the library organized and how they put the notes on it. So, and I think this one, it's basically, they actually did the homework for us. Okay, we can inspect and see how this would go. Or in case we have doubts, we can go here, basically. Okay, we haven't seen this before, so it was interesting. Okay, so if you go in here, for instance, on accordion, we have just very humble do and don'ts, right? As Beatriz was mentioning, like the documentation. We have it here, but it's very like, very open still. And then we figure it out that this Lightning will be like Lightning products or design system, and this one would be the blueprint for what we understood. Our guesses, not necessarily what exactly it means. And so we have a lot of components, and let's try to see like a more complex one. So we can see like a very complex variants and properties. Yeah, so this one, so this one is already a lot of, it's complete. So, okay, default and error. And it's interesting that they put like, I also tried to do this. I'm not sure if you ever felt that difficulty afterwards, but when you do stuff like this on a group, sometimes people keep like list, and you don't know which one is it. And I found that it was nice that they also put the numbers, as I usually do, because in case you don't put them as well as here, you actually get lost in which, they actually didn't put it here, but I also then put it here as well. So you can know the corresponding stuff here and there, because sometimes you just put list item, and then like, which one? Like you have to guess and try all the buttons,
Yeah, I also wonder, like, they have many components like this that have big lists. I don't know if they are using that hidden component that you can switch, so you can more. I can't see that on the structure, but it's very useful. I don't know if they're trying also to limit the amount of lines you have, but I don't think that's the case.
Yeah. And because they're very white label, I think they just want to share like, look, you can do all of this, because then they put the nested instance on each one of them. This one is interesting. Supporting text. Okay, yeah. And so it's a very complex component properties. And so it's a good test to see if you see any bug on it. We're not hoping for that, but sometimes it happens. Yeah, so maybe we can try to, so let's go on the exercise and try to convert this fellow into a new one based on what we are seeing here. So usually we do the exercise of trying to understand like what this would be named. Would this be like main navigation, menu? So let's try it. Could it be menu?
That's what I hate sometimes on design systems. Like they don't put like synonyms on components. So you might think that something is called accordion, but then on X design, it's called another way. So I do like when I see like synonyms within design systems, which this one doesn't, but it's a good thing.
We have patterns, right? Like I know because it's on the example designs, I can see, but they also name them as groups, as like the entire pattern. So it's a bit easier and bring the entire module, and inside you have the little components as well.
Okay, cool. I found this like a global navigation, so this one seems pretty straightforward. Was not that hard to find it. So let's see. Maybe this one would be like this. So this, considering the search and the logo, would be interesting. Maybe the header. Let's see if header will work. So just to the heads ups to the crowd, we haven't looked this at all before. So we are just exploring as the same as you guys. We don't have a clue. I think Julie has some experience from previous stuff, but At least me and B, I think we're just trying. Which one do you think, Julia, will be the name of this when you try to put it?
Which one? The search? Oh, the search you already found.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then these avatars, and then the
It's called
the user
global
stuff.
header.
Actions and highlights, but I don't remember.
Yeah, it's global header. That's
Global header. Okay, so the same. Okay, same logic. Okay, good. We are going strong. Okay. This one will be interesting. Would be like a dashboard kind of thing, or card, something like that.
it has to be a combination of a lot of them. You see, that's
Yeah.
the other things that I don't like about like this kind of design systems. Like you need to guess the name. You cannot see them like if, for example, if you go on created on this file, Raquel, like each component is inside like a folder, so you cannot see the overall design of that component.
We have this builder head now. It's not this. But I assume it will follow the like header something.
Yeah.
Like it's not account because like here we have an account, but it can be anything.
Yeah.
So
builder head. Oh no, this is regarding the builder.
Yeah, the builder head is something different. There is a global header we already used.
Yeah, we can see on the documentation if something regarding the layouts that could tell us. Basically, let's try to see it.
There is this one. Is this one page header? No, this one have actions.
Okay.
But they look different.
It's the same.
Yeah, I think it has the new design. If you think about it.
And there is this one. I think it's for mobile. No, this is manual header.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, we're going strong. Let's put it here just to see how it goes. Okay, this one.
And this looks like it's a tab, right? It's not a progress yet, so it's like tab.
Yeah.
So there is the unique item, and then there is tabs do.
Oh, tabs do and tabs don't. Interesting name.
These are fancy. But then here it is. We have tabs, just tabs.
Wow. Why do we call it tabs do?
What is the tabs do and tabs don't?
Oh, because, okay, my bad. So this is like when you have the iPhone, this is not supposed to be public. So probably if we publish this wouldn't be available to people. So my bad. We already like going. So this is tabs, I think. Yeah, because it doesn't have the underline, the iPhone. The iPhone, like the stuff. Okay, so tabs, yeah. And then this is probably like a table. I don't know, probably. Let's see. Could we have like table?
Also, you have this like subheader here, like for segmenting. It looks like an accordion.
Yeah. And the accordion, I think that's.
I don't think it's an accordion because the accordion is very simple. It's like this, right?
Right, and then the error is on this side. This one. Oh, it's actually here. I was in the dark. Okay. And then, we can deactivate this one. So it could be. It could be.
Could be, right.
Let's see. This is made. I'm not sure this would be a table, but it seems like it but he has a lot of things to edit. So let's see.
I wonder, normally the tab content, the tab has also the content inside when you, I don't know, it's normally when I see the component of a tab, have the content inside as well. And it's like a card, so you can render thing.
Okay.
But here they don't, it's just the tab.
Yeah, let's see. Data tables, probably not.
I can.
Interesting. Okay. Could it be a model? No, model not.
Or it's a combination of puts, because they look like you can edit, right? Would this be? No, it's not. Puts is different.
Okay, for this one, maybe we can sneak in and see what they have on their key screens, just out of curiosity.
So I found a form field content that looks a lot like this. Account name. Let me bring.
Oh, really? Okay, so I still haven't gonna do like. I'm gonna still not. Okay, yeah, it looks like this. Okay,
right? Okay. So it's a form field content. Yeah, I was thinking like maybe the combination of inputs would be a form.
Okay, but we need to figure it out where this fella is, because this would be a hidden one. So let's see where it is at.
Oh yeah.
Oh, interesting. It's hidden. It's hidden here. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, we have
So-
nobody on there.
So it's probably this one.
And then
And they call it a card. Oh, it's a card. And inside of it is probably options as variants. Let's take a look. So if I go there and search for card.
there is, you can also change this from about to contact. There's 2 variants.
Okay, okay. And then the card, it looks like this. So, oh, they have like, oh no, this is probably like the predefined stuff that they recommend you to swap. They have a lot of things that should be hidden, so I'm not sure if this is actually hidden or they don't like recommend right away. Because if you replicate this file, you would also see like this, right?
Yeah.
So
I think it's
maybe
more when you publish it. So when you publish it, like you don't really see them, but if you're
Yeah.
using like, that file, you will see it.
Yeah, but thinking as being an open source, so thinking of the scenario that probably people outside will replicate this library, they will see more stuff that are hidden, ironically, than they should, most likely. Okay.
Oh, they changed the path. I found the log a call, but it looks different from the image. And
So-
they look like segmented control, right, in the image.
Mm.
As you switch, is like not exactly as a tab.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
here?
a lot. Yeah, it's a more composed tab, probably. Let's see if we have different type of tabs.
And the log a call here looks different. So I think it might not be this one. This is a button.
Yeah. The tabs regarding the variants only have different sizes, so oh, they have this stuff which is really painful. Like if you put the nested instance, you can change. Like I put here size medium or size default, but if you are a little bit newbie and try to do this manual, it could happen this. But I think you have to trust people when they are using this type of things, right? Yeah, but this one I have no clue. Maybe we can see on the screen that they have what they have there.
I like have you looked for the buttons in the library? They have these buttons, I think.
Oh, not yet. Let me check.
Yeah, they're like this left, they have the middle one, and then they have the right one.
It's here that you're mentioning, the button stuff?
Yeah, like if you just search for buttons on the library, it's gonna appear like the first button, then the middle button.
Okay.
Because
okay.
the buttons, they have, this one. So edit is the left button. It's the first button, actually, this one.
Okay. It's
and then
interesting that they didn't use the same one as nested.
It's variants the same. Well. Yeah, they're all separate.
Oh, wow.
And then you have the middle button.
90 variants. Okay, let's take a look.
But if you see like those components, they are hidden.
But they're hidden. Yeah, they're hidden. Okay, interesting.
So those wouldn't be published, I guess.
Interesting.
Oh, they're like atoms for the button group.
Okay. Interesting. But they had a lot there. Interesting.
Yeah, and then they add like a lot of options.
Yeah.
So you put inside.
Container. Okay, button 3. Okay, but here is clean. I was expecting to have your like an inside like buttons,
Oh
like
yeah,
when
this
you use
tab I was looking for.
Yeah, this is called scoped tabs. And then you have like scope tabs.
Yeah, I was wondering like what is the difference from the other tab, because this is what I was mentioning, like a tab that comes with the placeholder content already.
Yeah.
And this other one doesn't have it. And it's
I'm gonna start to follow you guys because I think you're more into it.
Yeah, this one.
And then you just change it with the content that you'd like.
Okay. But in a half an hour, 15 minutes, it's not that hard from others that we tried on the unboxing. I think Atlassian was way complex regarding the naming. This one is more or less okay. We're still, knowing the library and we have a lot of hidden stuff. But in case they just put like the ones that they should, I think it's quite Figma friendly in that sense. They have a lot of component properties, but it's because they have a lot of things nested. So I think they try to simplify people's lives, like putting all at the first level. So I don't think this as complex in that sense because you only have the size and then the tabs, and each tab are like okay in that sense. They're not like super hard to change stuff. You know what I mean? So sometimes they are a lot of complex and nested, and you get really crazy and sometimes repeat stuff from the nested for the main one. And this one, I still haven't felt that. Like sometimes you have state default, and then the state default is also on the tabs, and then they start to overlap and stuff like that. So as a designer, which one you should choose? This one, I think it's friendly in that sense.
Yeah, I also think it depends what where you're coming from. So for example, like my design system is basically just like mobile. So I'm not used to like all of this amount of components or like such a big product like with so many instances and so many things within, like the amount of buttons that they have and stuff. So for me, for example, it is a little bit complicated. I do understand like the behind of the file, but still I think there's like a lot of things that are hidden and that they're just a little bit confusing, at least for me. Like for example, all of those atoms that we've seen that they're hidden, like why wouldn't they put it like visible? So that way you know how that component is built. Like why are they hidden? So there's like a lot of those things that since I don't them, I don't really about that.
I think it's because they use a lot of slot logic. So they have, as I was seeing here, like the predefined ones, they use a lot of the card, and then the card has a slot. And so it's a little bit like, you got to do what you got to do and put it inside of the slot and swap it. So that's probably why they have a lot of things that are hidden, because they are, since they are slot, they're going to be specific content inside. So probably those hidden was just because to make the template, most likely. This is what I suspect. Of course, we're just playing around, but overall, it doesn't seem like too hard to use. Let's try to see.
They did talk about localization and all of those ones. Like, I would love to see like some sort of variables for that. Just like one switch, see how that goes, but they don't have it.
Oh, with modes, right? We could change like. Oh, we can also see how they have organized here. So it's interesting. Okay, so they have like a global stuff. So people, if you wanna dig in, interesting. Then they have like, so their semantic stuff. It's probably what they call styling hooks, for what I understand.
Is it semantic? Because like the naming looks more like core. It doesn't really tell you anything.
Yeah, some of them, they're probably a bug, but they wanna, convert this to like 1038 pixels. Like there's a scale on it. I think it's still globals, but more related to numbers.
Yeah.
But then you have a little bit of purpose already here, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's kind of weird that they put like the name of the core token there within the variable, like one electric blue 50.
Yeah.
Like why would you care, right?
Yeah.
Like you have semantics, you have 1, 2, 3, and like you don't care what's the color, you just care that like what's the most important one to use.
Yeah. In case they are, coming to Figma, which I don't think that, but maybe to be more friendly for people that have no clue about using this stuff, maybe they just, heads up and put there in case people are wondering exactly which color is inside. It happens, like, which neutral is actually this one, like which disable, which tone is actually this one,
Yeah, but then like if you're grabbing the variables with like an API or something like that from Figma, it doesn't really work out because it doesn't really match as to what you have. and the naming set is a little bit weird, but yeah, for Figma's for Figma, I think it can work.
But it's interesting, like why they would put this. Interesting.
Yeah.
Like, is it to be more friendly for people that have no clue about tokens or variables? Like, you're choosing this one, so because it's really repetitive, like Indigo 10, Indigo 10.
No, it's just repetitive.
But in terms of naming, like, it's not that good, because like if you change one, like that naming to now use the teal 90, you will change that token.
Yeah, that kind of breaks the idea of the naming to be agnostic, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. As you mentioned, if you change this for some reason, then they have to change this as well. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Maybe like something just for designers to see what's the color, which wouldn't really mind that much for them, but could be for that same thing.
Interesting. On their font scale, it's really like, globalish, and then with purpose inside, like the display will be the highest ones, and then the titles will be from 3 to 5, 3 to 6, and then the body will be this ones. They even have a negative one. But like, it's really
like if you have to like add a new title, you wouldn't have a naming for it.
Yeah. Like, I think that's why they have this like this, because they're so white label that this is basically to tell people, look, we have this proposition for titles, and you can use from 3 to 6, and maybe if people feed from this and use like title X or title M or title principal or whatever. I'm guessing, of course, but maybe that's why they put it like that.
Very hard to add new things, right?
Yes.
It looks like maintenance, a lot of maintenance for the renaming system, like renaming the tokens.
Yeah. I mean, still, I guess like they have been like one of the first ones to adopt tokens, so they like
actually those
should be like best, and that if it works for them, it's because they have tested it a lot.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
They also have here another file, which is called Style Guide. Maybe here we can understand a little bit better. So let's open this one and see how it goes. Just 1 second. I'm gonna do this in a different browser just to avoid to share random stuff with you guys. So 1 second, just to see what we will see since we have some spare time. So I want to duplicate here. And so let's just check it out and invite you really quickly to the file. And maybe here they can explain.
By the way, I saw the path component and they fixed it. Looks really nice how they did. But looks like the font was not working.
Okay.
When you... Or was just a bug.
And I think we're here. So hopefully... Yeah. Okay, so let's dig in this one. Style guides. Oh, so we have a comment from Dixon. I've seen that one as the way to use variables to explain how the token is used. I saw that in a Figma training course. Okay, thank you, Dixon. Truly useful. So I think it's very design token Figma variable friendly in that sense, so people understand. We also duplicate this one now for the style guide, so maybe this one. No, don't have anything, but they will explain a bit on how they style stuff. They explain a bit the styling hooks, which is interesting. So like the CSS properties that they change. Okay, so see on surface 3. Okay, so they explain a bit like how they put the names on it. Okay. And the semantic names, feedbacks. Okay. Let's see. Surface color. So there's a lot of work here. We just might need to study a bit. Yeah. On surface colors. Okay. But it doesn't explain that Figma stuff. Okay, on error 1. They use a lot of scale of 1, 2, 3, 4 stuff. It's interesting.
We do at Bubble, whereas it's simpler to do that than to do like S or like t-shirt sizes. I mean, it's a way of naming. So
also t-shirt sizing is very limiting. Like you don't have that much options, so you can get that limitation.
Okay, font weight. So I think here they're just explaining a lot on how the tokens are built and what they mean. So maybe this could be useful for someone that is using it as a white label stuff, like the scale 7, you know?
this is
As
like
we were seeing.
the type of description or like guidelines that I would love to see within like the Salesforce webpage.
Yeah, so it has a lot of documentation here, actually.
Yeah.
A lot of it. Interesting.
Which is good for designers, like how to use it and like what are the different like tokens you can use. Because as said before, like I think the Salesforce webpage that they have for design systems is very developers focused, which I understand, of course, but also me as a designer, I would love to see this there.
Yeah. Interesting that they have so much stuff here. And then styling hooks. Okay, so this is like their tokens sheets. So they put it all here. Okay, but I would expect this on, you know, the Figma file that we duplicated. So probably this is a more internal one. Because styling hooks.
I think this file has everything that this file has. So like this is just more like guidelines, and then they put the colors into the other file that we were seeing before because it's the same.
It seems less here, but probably it's because I'm seeing like if I put it like this, maybe I, you know, see it more corresponding to this one. Like, okay, but I think it's starts to match. Yeah, and they put it this descriptions. I think here this descriptions could be nice if they put it on the description itself on the variable, because you can put descriptions here.
Yeah.
So it could be super useful for them to put it here.
Maybe
so
they have
people know.
Maybe on colors they have.
Let's see. Accents. Let's see. Oh, there you go. Yeah. You're strong. Yeah. You're strong. Yeah. I thought it was super weird that they didn't have that yet. Okay, so I think they explain a lot of that combinations. They seem less than we were expecting, but if you think about it, there's a lot of semantic tokens here.
And there's a lot of feedback based, right? I think that's the main use case that we have. I have a lot of different types.
Yeah, container, and then on success, border success. Okay, interesting.
As we said before, like this is some sort of like white labeling theme design system, so they need to give a lot of options for the different companies to actually do whatever they want. So I guess that's why they have like a lot of. So for example, the error, do you really need like one container 2 on error 1 on error 2? Like for me, this semantics is almost kind of the same. Like there's not really anything that tells you what to use or when not to use. So I guess that's why, you know, like just to let them use whatever they want and not mess it up.
I also see this like probably as elevation kind of thing, like the lighter to be like, I don't know, a banner, and then the other one would be like a model that is more urgent kind of thing. But just, you know, just putting, we can see what they say actually here. Okay, so the container 1 and 2, for instance, container background to fill color error for components such as error threads and alerts. And this one for destructive buttons. Okay, so it's very generic. Yeah.
But it's that they have to be generic just because, for example, when we're talking about localization, like on Asia, they use this as a happy color. So they need to change it for something else, right?
Yeah. So I think over less we eventually explore most of the components. They were easy to find out, right? So they were not that super hard, like impossible names or stuff like that. And we're just doing this for fun in half an hour. So in case we would need this like for our full-time jobs, I think it's not that hard in that sense for what we figure it out. My curiosity is that if this is a white label, would then I use this like now on top of it, and let's say for instance this would be my tabs, for instance, and so now I would put here on top of it, like change the typography, I don't know, to Comic Sans. No, I cannot use that. Okay, so I have to use so for instance, the typography. It's a very interesting thing because the typography is very attached to the brand. So can we change the typography? Probably there's somewhere in the guidelines regarding the typography.
I think
because
you can, at least like they have on the variables, if you see they have Microsoft and Android typography, or something like that, or Apple typography. So they must allow you to change it for something else.
Yeah. Okay. Regular. Oh my God, I think he will turn everything in Comic Sans. I just realized that. Okay. But for instance, let's say that my brand has Comic Sans on it. So I would overwrite this and make this as my tab. You know what I mean? My question, like, or should I just replace with my variables? You know, how would be your approach? Because I haven't done white label for a while, because since you had modes on it and variables, I quit that because I did like a white label some years ago. But now, since we have modes and variables more, you know, refined, I was wondering how this would be white label, and then I could put the brand on it inside, you know, like put this in my brand. Would I just replace the tokens from my own? Would I just create a mode on the side? Would I just, you know, directly just put it here? You know what I mean with my question?
If you have access to the variables panel, you can just add like a thing, right?
Yeah,
instead of changing.
Yeah.
Because
that could be an option, right? I put here like brands, like a mode, and I will put my brand. And because they have the same structure, I can just, you know, not change what I need and just change what I want, right? Sorry, he got excited.
Yeah.
So,
and then you change the modes. But I mean, like, I don't know what would be the difference if you just change the values, if you have access to the main variables as well, so you can go directly to the
right.
It's like more work.
Actually, like if you go to typography within the collections, because they have a whole collection for typography, you have the modes there. So I would go to family, the font family, and I would just change one of those ones, create a new mode and change that font family, and that's pretty much it.
Okay, I think that's it. Yeah. Okay, so we can consider this variables as like a template kind of thing, like the white label, and then we would basically change here the stuff. And the interesting part is if people change the color as well, so it would be interesting. And they probably just assume this as like a, you know, as a formula, because then they could, you know, preview on their components. So it could be interesting, like how people approach this. Yeah. Okay, I think that's a wrap up for today. We explore a lot, so thank you for the ones that survived 1 hour and a half with us. I hope you learned anything, something with us, sorry. And I think we can finish. I'm not sure if there's any questions on the chat. We can just see if Bruno, that's in the backstage, by the way. Thank you, Bruno, that is helping us maintaining the live stream. We don't have it? Okay. Okay, it's no issue. I think we have a new feature, by the way, on Friends of Figma, right, Bruno, that you launch a question and people can answer, right? So in case you want to explore that.
Easier to say, yes, there is.
Okay. So in case you want to explore that better, maybe we can share it on LinkedIn or something like that. That allows us in our events page to put a question and you can chat with us there. So maybe it could be interesting in case you have any question. And I think that's it. Thank you so much. I'm not sure if Julia and Beatriz would like to add something, but to sum up, I think they have a lot of things for a white label. I think they have a lot of text. I would be more, I'm going to follow Bruno now. I would be more, of course, I'm terrible with this. So our next events, as you can see here, you can follow up next Thursday. I think we will have Dr. Figma, and then by March, April, we'll have other partnerships along. So feel free to catch up, and in case you need to see this better, you can see it in our Friends of Figma. We will also have the config, of course. I think you are aware. In this year, we will have two locations, so in San Francisco and in London. So people here in Portugal have more chance to go, hopefully. And we are also having layers this year, another edition, this time in Porto in October 10. Not sure if Bruno want to add something that I might skip for the events. That's it. Okay, cool. Okay. Beatriz and Julia, would you like to add anything?
No, I think that's it. I think they did a lot of nice updates on the components as well. So the last time I used was a bit more, it took some time to play with things, and I think they simplified a lot of things. I saw that they have some hidden components as well, so they can focus on entire patterns and to hide a lot of possibilities. So I think that's nice. But yeah, I think that was it.
Okay, cool. Then I think we can conclude. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and see you on the next event. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.